Hello, everybody. Jeff Mason and Rick the Quick Diana. Yes, episode 87 coming to you from St. Louis. Half Coast Studios, Dietz and Matt on the boards, making this sound great and making us feel welcome here. So this is part B to a two-part series. Rick was in for last week, and we had a great discussion about some of the ways we look at the whole job market from the employer side. But today, this is going to be fun because today we're talking about talent. We're talking about being a talent agent and managing that talent. So real quick, just some housekeeping. If you are interested in becoming a subscriber, please go to, or you'll see a favicon, lower right-hand portion of your YouTube screen. Go there, hover over it. That'll take you to YouTube. You can sign. You have to be signed into YouTube, but you can end up subscribing there from that, or you can get to YouTube from our website, SimpleBiz360.com. We're on 27 listening channels, so if you don't want to have the visual experience, you want the audio, we're on all the big boys, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it. So go on down the line. So we are really excited. Rick has driven out from New Jersey, doing a little bebop trip. I think you were in Notre Dame, right? Spent a couple days in South Bend and then Chicago.
On to Nashville.
And then where from there?
Atlanta.
Tampa. Wow.
Gulf Coast. Miami.
Look at this. This is great. 4 weeks on the road. So we're just so excited. And for those of you who don't know, Rick's company is right up here, Trinitas Talent Management Company, and his website is trinitastalent.com. Rick is a talent agent specializing in equipping and getting talent ready to go out and get the best jobs possible. So, that's what it's all about. So we had a really good part A, which is episode 86. If you want to see, there may be some tie back that you want to go back and see, but today we'll try to just make this an episode that's really good for anybody looking to evolve or enhance their career. You can also find this on our website at Career Corner. So if you go to that tab on our website or our YouTube playlist on Career Corner, we're going to have this as well. So welcome back, Rick. Great to have you. And we're going to talk a little bit at the end about a company we grew up with that has some fun lineage to it. And we're just going to have a blast today. So Trinitas, you came up with the name because of your love for threes, right?
My love for three, the love for my faith, my Catholic faith. And I just believe that, people, in terms of that old elevator pitch, what you do, those three things that you do better than anybody is really the glue that helps explain who you are and what you do better than anybody. Self-aware people, what is it that makes you special? And that you're not afraid to speak about it. Because if you don't toot your own horn, who else will, right?
Yeah.
There's a time and place for shouting from the mountaintop, especially if you want to get, and aspire to the things that you want, whether it's, additional responsibility, new job opportunities, or making all the money that you want to make and providing for your family or getting ahead in life, whatever it is, right? And your craft, you have to let people know what it is that you do. You have to be confident about your brand.
So we're gonna dive into this whole concept of three a little bit further down today's road. But so let's just real quick recap. Talent agent. So you've heard this term in sports. You've heard it in Hollywood. There's this whole, hey, you're a talent and you've got to have an agent to help get you the better, opportunities and so forth. Well, Rick is a talent agent in the sense that kind of equipping and empowering the individual to realize what they have to bring to the table, how they can bring it to the table, how they can leverage, how they can use it, how they can go into the job market that's not always the visible job market, and a whole lot more. But talent agent, man, when did you come up with this concept of going from that classic executive recruiter to this talent agent?
That's a great question, Jeff, and thanks for starting with that. After 10 years of recruiting on behalf of enterprises, I spent a lot of time with the talent. At the end of the day, when I woke up in the morning, it was about helping the corporation who was writing me the check to find that talent. So how do I serve them? But when you come across the right individual, you now feel like you're serving that individual as well. And I always had a lot of fun working with the individual, especially someone with enthusiasm, who had the right skills and talents and really wanted the job. That I wanted to help them to win that job as much as I wanted the corporation to acquire that talent. So over the years, for every position, we talked about in Part A, 4-3-2-1, the formula that we use. Not everybody wins the job. And as an executive recruiter, which I did this for 8 to 10 years before I got into the talent agency business, if someone didn't earn the right to win the job, I never wanted to be that person that said, I'll keep your resume on file. Because it's a lie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to keep your resume on file. I mean, I may keep it on file, but I'm not going to do anything with it.
Right.
Because I wake up the next day not working for you, I'm working for this person. But I just had a certain soft spot in my heart for individuals who wanted to get ahead, and I volunteered my time speaking to them about how we can, I'm available to you.
Yeah.
Right? Even though you didn't win this one, I really like you, and there's a lot that you bring to the table. Let's stay connected.
Yeah. Interesting. So rewinding your career clock and going back to when we both started in New York City with Lanier Business Products, there was a heavy emphasis on training, and they equipped us with the skills that we needed to be successful. So there's a certain tie, at least in my mind, to what you do, and back to an affinity or an appreciation for the training that you received as a young man. Am I right or wrong? Is it tether back to that?
Well, sales book number 1, right out of college, the 5 steps of the sale, right? What I learned through maturation in the sales profession, it's really about the 5 steps of buying. So there's a psychology to it. And whatever decisions we make, whether it was to have a glass of, tap water or a bottled water or, Pellegrino, you go through that 5 steps of attention, interest, conviction, desire, and action. Obviously, the more complex the decision is, whether it's to choose a mate or buy a car or, buy a house, the process can be a little bit more layered. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we learn the sales process and how to bring about the buying process for that person who needed your solution in order to improve whatever their state was.
Yeah. And so as a young man in sales coming out, I know I was in the same boat. I mean, if you just left it to your own devices, I know I almost floundered out of the company because I didn't accept the training I got. But once I accepted it, I then grew a passionate love affair with continuous improvement, with constantly wanting to find ways to self-educate me to become better at my profession. And I look at you, you have a servant's heart. You're doing things for people to make them a better version of their professional self. And you noticed how much it helped you as a young professional. And because of that, I believe that's what catapulted you into this.
What I was thinking as you were giving that background is when I was interviewing with that company many years ago out of college, when I decided that I wanted to be in sales, I think somewhere along the line they told me that there'd be a lot of training. I think.
Yeah.
And that's probably what attracted me to it. Yeah. Because who was I?
Yeah.
I was the son of a guy who had a deli.
Yeah.
My dad was the deli man. There was no professional expertise in my family. Yeah. Although, if not for my dad, I wouldn't have the work ethic that I have. I mean, there's no question about it. Working in the store gave me a certain appreciation for what it would take to be successful in sales. But the training aspect of it was something that I knew I needed. Yeah. What did I have? I mean, I had a college education, and they delivered. And they provided that basic training. A lot of times, organizations call it boot camp training today. Yeah. We had it, right?
Yeah.
Not only for the first day or the first week or the first month, but when you went out with your sales manager, and you had to show them a good day. That was training in of itself. There's pressure there in order to demonstrate that you had your territory together and so forth. But I was very, very thankful, blessed to have that sort of training because I don't think I ever took it for granted, but not every company gives that sort of, foundational training to your craft. And in our case, it was professional selling.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at sales as a profession.
Absolutely. And not apologizing for it. Correct. And never being ashamed about what it, that a sale makes the economy go around. I mean, some people say, nothing happens until something gets sold.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Well, and folks, really, we would not be here, Rick or I, today if it wasn't for our original jobs out of college with Lanier Business Products. And, I give them a lot of credit in my book, and there's certainly a lot that, we've talked about it, and we'll talk a little bit at the end of the show about it, but we've, taken a lot of that with us. But mostly, and I think we're two peas in a pod this way, mostly we've taken the experience of sharing something that makes that light bulb go off in someone else. And when that light bulb goes off in someone else, you're paying something forward that you've been gifted with. And I know you feel this way. And there's not too many delights in the world that can compare to that, because you're equipping someone with something tangible that they can use. And it's just so neat to see, somebody go, wow, that makes sense. I'm going to use what you taught me, right? I mean, you mentioned it.
I don't know how many hours of instruction I was given, but I can tell you whatever it was, I returned it 100 times to others out there. Maybe not always in a formalized professional training session, but it's not just about that. It's about how you communicate, how you put yourself forward. Yeah. How you sometimes use your hands when you talk and make really good eye contact. Right. And, look at the nonverbals. Remember, we even studied that as a young 20-something guys. We learned about the nonverbals and how to read a potential client. We didn't want to talk over that client, and talking over that client, if they were armed like this, that was talking over. I mean, you need to get them to be more open. Right. So maybe a lot of the skills that we learned were they were sophisticated in a lot of ways, and we had to deliver. At the end of the day, it was about, bringing home the bacon and achieving quota and producing for the company. And I appreciated, that sort of pressure at the time.
Yeah. No, it was an absolutely great foundation, and you're looking at two gentlemen who are arguably we're on the getting towards the tail end of our careers, in many ways, and but that pay it forward, there's just something so gratifying about being able to share what you've learned, and not in a boastful or arrogant way, but in a very practical, usable, applicable way where you could, apply what we're talking about. So I do appreciate you spending the time with us, because it's so cool. And this whole concept that you've developed at Trinitas is really, as you've explained it to me, you're trying to kind of open someone up and mushroom their thought process to seeing things they haven't seen in themselves, and then being able to articulate that. Is that kind of the essence of it?
You're the star. You're the star of the show. So when most people think of a talent agent, they think of an actor has a talent agent who is reviewing scripts. I mean, I doubt very much Tom Cruise has to, knock on someone's door.
Right.
The scripts come to him, and he gets a chance to reject or accept, right?
Right.
Serena Williams is on the tour, right? And she's looking for, I guess, her 23rd, Grand Slam title. I hope she gets it. She's invited to all of the events, obviously, but she also has an agent to maybe do other things for her, like perhaps some of the advertising that she does, right? In order to build her wealth or to increase her brand. LeBron James is known also for his abilities to, and Alex Rodriguez. These are business people that just have more than just the game that they've played, and they've got great agents. We think about agents when it comes to a band who's booking, venues for a decent band, or I'm filling Wembley Stadium. But I saw the movie Joker Did you see the movie Joker with Joaquin Phoenix?
No.
The clowns had an agent too.
Oh my God.
So when I think about agency, I think about advocating for an individual, representing somebody, lobbying for them, helping them create a voice that they can't create for themselves. Because we all know it's really not what you say about yourself that counts. It's about what others say about you that matters. And you need that buffer every once in a while. I mean, Garrett Cole is a pitcher that signed on with the Yankees last year. I think it was a $330 million contract. Now, I'm pretty sure he could have gotten at least $315, no offense to his great agent, without the agent. Or $290, he would have done pretty well with or without the agent, right? But that's not what it's about, right? And it's about being positioned properly in the organization and get everything he needs, because he's putting the next 8 or 9 years into the organization. He wants to feel comfortable, his family's moving there, et cetera. But in the terms of business professionals, more and more people are realizing that they also are maybe not entitled, but deserve agency. Because what have I done in my career, and what is it that I've accomplished to help my management team or my employer or the person that's contracting me to do the job? What have I done? I mean, The Weeknd did the halftime show at the Super Bowl this year. I mean, did they just choose him because he's got good music? Or did they figure that the advertising would pay more than pay back, right? There had to be a quantification there to why they would want him to do. Now, I don't represent these sorts of stars. I don't represent luminaries. I represent business professionals who bring something special to the table, but need the help in getting that word out to folks who would be attracted to it.
Okay, so getting the word out to the people who could possibly hire them?
Hire them in many different ways, right? You got capital J job, so it could be a traditional employee relationship. It could be a project, it could be a gig, it could be getting them out of trouble, or there's an integration going on, and this person is known as a master technology integrator when it comes to bringing two companies together. And if the job is not done right, it can cost the company millions of dollars.
Right.
Bringing that person in makes it smoother and guarantees success.
Now, to do this, do you need to be geographically in a person? I mean, do you need to be in the New York City metro area where you reside, or can people be elsewhere to use your services?
Anywhere. Anywhere, sure.
Okay. So is there a kind of a punch list, or is there a list of things and exercises that you take people through to allow them to see the uniqueness in themselves? I mean, does everybody see their own uniqueness, or do they recognize it?
I think for the people that do, they're still somewhat shy about it.
Yeah.
Again, Tom Brady's record speaks for itself. But I bet you his agent still had to do a little bit of work with the Tampa Bay team, right, to get everything that Tom wanted in order to compete for another Super Bowl.
Right.
Crying out, another one, right? So they knew the talent they had in Tom Brady, but from everything that I've heard, they had to build the right offensive line around him, the right defense. So there's more than Tom needed, and Tom knows best, I would presume. So it's really about understanding what you're bringing to the table and not being afraid to say, Tom Brady has done it. It's sold. How many things do people do that they're sure about, but are not willing to really articulate it? To think that maybe the resume is going to speak to it. It's more than that. You have to know what the numbers are, and it's important to know what those numbers are. And back in the day, with Lanier, we talked about evidence defeats disbelief.
Yes.
And that, the acronym DEFEATS, DEFEATS, all stood for something. And I don't know if people really, are ready to defend. I mean, listen, let's face facts. The best defense is a good offense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So if you're on the field and you're just scoring, so you have to be out there, you have to be assertive about what it is that you bring to the table, and have a little bit of a feeling like Tom Cruise, like, you know what, I'm not really sure I'm interested in your script. I know a better one's going to come along. But if you really want me to do that movie, it's going to cost you, because, you know, I'm a leading box office, you know, persona, and I'm going to fill up the theaters, and everybody's going to make money just because I'm doing the movie, right? But I still have integrity to the kind of script I want to take.
Right.
What are the scripts that are out there?
Yeah.
What are the venues that you want to play?
Yeah.
I try to get people to understand that they're the leader of the rock and roll band, and they control their own destiny. So what's the music you want to play? And Trinitas, what are the 3 things that you do better than anybody?
Okay.
Or at least 99% better than the next person.
So this is what you encourage in the candidate or
Yes.
the person.
You know, I go back to, you know, when we were in the 3rd or 4th grade, and teacher assigned us our first composition or our first essay. Yeah. Right? And she went to the board. For the young people, it was a whiteboard. For us, it's probably a chalkboard. And you had your introductory paragraph. And then you had the 3 paragraphs in between that were really the glue to your story or your persuasion, and then a concluding paragraph. Most people do a decent job of their opening paragraph, but they don't really have paragraph 2, 3, and 4 very much set. Yeah. They don't really have that concreteness. Now, once you get paragraph 2, 3, and 4 set, it's easy to write the concluding paragraph. Yeah. So it's more than just an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is to get someone's attention, but you have to be able to back it up. Yeah. So for a movie star, it's maybe box office numbers, right? For the baseball hitter, it's batting average. We all have a batting average. We all have our hits. We all have our accomplishments. If we don't have it documented, then no one's going to do it for us.
And very, very interesting. So you know, you don't deal with just salespeople. So when you're dealing with non-salespeople and helping them in their talent development process, I mean, how do you get that person to understand that you have to sell yourself a little bit, that there has to be a little projection of some of these accomplishments, and you kind of have to, how do you get that person to grow that way?
Yeah, I think most of my success is actually with non-salespeople. While I believe salespeople could benefit, many of them have the confidence where, well, I can kind of do this on my own. But that's changing. That's changing because there's a lot of noise out there in the marketplace. And I even think that the finest salespeople, they want, again, their voice to be heard. But for non-salespeople, I don't think we want them to be somebody that they're not. Right. But selling is not a bad word. Yeah.
Good. Glad you said that.
Right. As a matter of fact, I find that selling and leadership have similar definitions, and getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it in the first place. Yeah. So if there's a problem that has to be solved at a potential client and you have an idea to help them over the hump to save them $4 or $5 million, they need to know that you can do it, this is how you would do it, and write it up and say, this is the solution, and I'm ready to start next week. Oh, that sounds great, Jeff. What's it going to cost me? It's not going to cost you a thing. It's going to cost you to not hire me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Write up the proposal. So, you know, I've noticed a lot of people who got into that merry-go-round of hiring, right? They found the next job, and of course they got the next salary, and they ran the next organization. They got the benefits, and there's a point in time when you're like, wait a minute, who am I working for? Am I working for them? Am I working for me? So scale it back, realize what it is that you bring to the table, quantify it, and come to someone like me, an agent, who could be really the one who's going to take the megaphone and shout to the world what you bring to the table in your own world.
Okay. So I appreciate that. So going back to one of the things you said a little while ago is this whole concept, and it's in our book as well, and we do give credit to Linear Business Products, but it's evidence defeats disbelief. And this acronym, it's demonstrations, examples, facts, analogies, testimonials, statistics, right? And it's exhibits as well. And it's these things that allow you to choose one of those communication methods. And I remember you mentioned in the previous podcast that, you know, hey, if you think there's a way that you could solve a problem they're currently having that you noticed in their annual report that you can actually create a 3-page PowerPoint and share the screen with them and show them through this demonstration, which is one of the acronyms, one of the letters of the acronym, that you're capable of doing this. And so help the viewers and listeners. How can they assemble some of these items of proof so that they can bridge the gap in these interviews and show people that, hey, this is...
It's a great question. So we worked with something back in the day called a site seller.
Right.
Right?
Right, exactly.
So much information out there, tools that you can use to bring about, the evidence
right.
to demonstrate
right.
why it is that you're the right person. Again, best defense is a good offense.
Right.
So the D stands for demonstration, right? Help me along here.
Yes.
In defeats, right? The E was for
examples.
Example. F is fact.
Fact.
The second E was
Exhibits.
exhibit. A was analogy. T was testimonial. S was statistics.
Correct.
Well,
Yeah.
We got it, right?
Yeah.
I would say take out a sheet of paper, D, E, F, E, A, T, S, and say D for demonstration. On this interview or on this interaction or this engagement I'm having with somebody who's interested in my talents, what can I possibly demonstrate?
Right.
Okay? Just ask the question, I think.
Right.
And then go down the line.
Right.
We know the S is statistics. What are the stats? What a business person is going to appreciate about what I've done in the past that can be transferred into what I can do for them in the future. Right. Testimonial. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got a really good project that's on the table and you want to nail that project, you should ask your 3 best friends or your 3 best colleagues to write a testimonial about how you delivered a project or how you created something
right.
in the past that's relevant to this new position.
Right.
Because if you're going to go in and meet with an interviewing team or a panel, again, wouldn't it be great for me to show, well, this is what Jeff said about me. I didn't say it about myself. Jeff said it. And this is what Mary said. And this is what Mike said. And, there's proof in the pudding here.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, in that testimonial, they can state some stats or facts.
Yeah.
If it weren't for Jeff, the project would have failed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're preparing an engagement and you're looking to win a job, again, capital J job, where you're the employee, or little j job where maybe you're a contracted specialist to fix a problem over a 6-month period, is to know what those are. Defeats, is that 7 letters?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
7 ways.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. So the uniqueness, and again, I think I'm doing a podcast on this coming up. I think it's episode 91 or something, but on uniqueness and how to stand out and in business as well. But, if you're going, you're trying to better yourself in your career, you want to be able to stand out separate from the other people, other candidates, other resumes and so forth. So speak to how important is the concept of shining your uniqueness light to the hidden job market. So not the job market that's out there advertising, but how does someone network and start expressing their uniqueness to that hidden job market? In other words, companies that aren't necessarily looking for people right now.
Well, I think you mentioned to yourself, you never, the jobs that you've always had, again, the capital J and the little j jobs have always come through your network, right?
Right.
So success breeds success.
Right.
And it's about conversations. I think that nowadays I say video is extremely important.
Right. We're here on video.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. It used to be about the resume. It used to be about brochures, right?
Yeah.
So what's the best way to get your message out there? It depends on what you're looking to you're looking to achieve. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're on a project, you should be dedicated to doing everything necessary to succeed in that project for the people that are compensating you to do so, right? I think networking is a generic term in a lot of cases where it's not an either-or thing. But you get to a certain point in your career, and where are you networking? Well, at church, in your neighborhood, philanthropy, on the ball field, You've run 6 marathons. I mean, you probably have 5 or 6 people you can call tomorrow that, may want to run that marathon with you next year. You know who those communities are. You want to build an ecosystem of people that are always going to watch out for you. And in turn, you need to do the same for them.
And isn't that correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that very accessible to today's professional as opposed to, 20 years ago? It's much more available.
Well, I think I mentioned it last week about the book that I must read. Yeah. You already know all the people you need to know. Absolutely. Yeah. They're there, right? And people want to hear from you. People want to be engaged. And if we haven't spoken to somebody in a long time, the first thing they're going to say is, Jeff, I haven't spoken to you in such a long time. Great to hear from you. Yeah. Sometimes we get so enveloped in our own work that we don't know how to take that break from just reaching out to somebody for the sake of reaching out.
Right. If I'm a professional and I'm being paid by a company and I'm in my job and I'm dissatisfied, but my company obviously doesn't know that. I want to go another direction. What kind of advice do you have for that professional? How do they go about tapping into this network? What kind of things do you say or bring up in conversation with the people to kind of flush this out?
So let me say this the right way. If somebody comes to me and they're not happy in their current position and they want to hire me, I'm going to say you better get happy in your current position.
Wow. Okay.
I'm no use to you. What kind of attitude do you? Why aren't you happy? I had it recently with a client who I explained to him, I think the best thing he can do is buckle down. I think I mentioned this individual who his next stage in his career, he needs to develop prospects. He needs to develop a book of business for a consulting firm that he's with. And when he came to me, he was looking to me as somebody who's going to help him find the next gig.
Interesting.
And I pretty much said, I think that you need to learn these skills before you leave the firm. Otherwise, and by the way, he told me he wanted to one day run his own business. So, Steve, not his name, Steve, if you want to run your own business one day, and if you've never sold anything or don't think you can sell anything, and now the company's giving you an opportunity to do it, and it is going to be part of your new job description, and you're going to get paid for it, by the way, why would you want to leave? This is the time for you to double down and take advantage of that and not be scared of developing business.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that great point, because I know that when I hired 65 graduates into their entry level job out of college, and they were sales jobs, and it was a smaller company, very diversified, had a lot of different tentacles to it, and one of my descriptions of what could happen if you were offered a job and you took a job with us is that you would, in a short period of time, be exposed and learn so many new skill sets that if you were open-armed about that and you accepted it and you rolled out the red carpet for it, after 2 years, you're that much more saleable to another company because you've learned how to make collections calls. You've learned how to manage this, that, or the other. You've learned how to exercise warranty policies. You've learned all these different things. And I think what I was saying, I think what you're saying is how to become happy is embrace the new skill sets you've been given, because you can always take that as a transferable skill to your next post. Isn't that?
People come and go.
Right.
Corporate America. Right. People come and go. Companies come and go. This has been happening, I ask the question every once in a while, what's the beginning of corporate America? And I get different answers.
Interesting.
You get answers from, the Industrial Revolution, or, when Ford, had the assembly line. Some people tell me the dot-com era. Some folks say when IBM rolled out the mainframe. The bottom line is, if we go back 250, 300 years, corporate America, or the corporation. And as a matter of fact, I even think that if we were to put in the time capsule right now, everything that's happening in corporate America, and the kids are studying corporate America in history class 100 years from now, there's going to be a little bit of like, well, what are you doing over there? Now, the younger people, the millennials, get that. They are not afraid to make change, to find, and that bothered me at first when I heard about how some people would jump from here to there. And you and me, I mean, I don't know how when I first joined that company, I thought I'd be there for 40 years. I didn't get it from my dad. Remember, he was the deli guy.
Right.
But that was what was happening. Right. Nothing wrong with that. You know, no one ever had my hands handcuffed to the table. I loved every single minute of it. But there came a point where I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. So I got into the people business. But I learned early on as a young sales manager at Lanier what it was like to evaluate talent. And I went out in the field with people who were interviewing, and there was expectations on me to come back after spending 6, 8, 10 hours with somebody in the field and say, so what'd you think about Mike? And I had to come up with...
Right. Yeah, and the reasons why.
And the reasons why. And I stumbled. And maybe they were grooming me to be a sales manager at the time, or maybe I just had really good organized days and they were using me. Either way, it worked to my benefit.
But what you did was you embraced that new set of responsibilities to learn something from it.
Totally. I would say they massaged my ego when they said, I need you to take Mike out in the field today, right? And it was the streets of New York City, and we're knocking on doors and we're cold calling at the time. And there were times when they surprised me with it, and I'm like, really, again? Like, I want to be alone today. I mean, this person's dragging me down. I'm busy. I gotta go about my territory. So yes, I did embrace it. And about 4 or 5 years ago, it occurred to me how those early days really got me to be in the talent management business, because I enjoyed it. Now, for many years, I was behind a product and a suite of products selling technology solutions. But it was about 10 years ago when I got into the people business where I realized that was a way for me to take advantage of my own skill sets. And if I'm not able to articulate to others how I got into this business, then how can I help them?
Yeah.
Right? And so I did some self-assessment. I talked to a lot of people. And I realized that my salesmanship really comes to play because I can help others brand their own talents and skills. There is a time and place for you to toot your own horn, and there's a time for somebody to do it on your behalf.
Yeah.
And by the way, the people that I'm working for, they're busy with their life, right? So again, you know, Tom Cruise has got a life. He's got an agent that's looking for really good scripts for him. The two things have to work in parallel.
Yeah, yeah. I know you listened to this episode. We had an episode a couple weeks ago. I think it was 76, Kristen Farah. And she mentioned that she had this whole concept of investing in herself, which I thought was very interesting because we were taught in 1984, 85, 86 to invest in yourself, build your own personal site seller book of evidence so that you could defeat disbelief on down the road and show people what you did. But she was saying that, it's all about investing into yourself, building your own personal brand today. And that was what she was. I know that the Dietz also, is very involved in making sure that brand of Alex Dietrich is very, very polished and, he projects it the right way. So a lot of this is done on social media. So talk to everybody today, if you could, a little bit about the role of social media, how you can invest, how can you can polish your brand, how you can project your brand, how you can network that brand.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is when people say resume, I automatically think about LinkedIn profile. I want to switch that conversation immediately. Now, why is that? What would you rather look at? Someone's resume or someone's LinkedIn profile? Well, it's probably I'd rather look at someone's LinkedIn profile. So how do you think someone wants to look at you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got a pretty face, you got a handsome gentleman. That's interesting. I can look at, a profile that projects a little more life, that tells a story in a certain way, even if it's to look at the logos of the companies that you work for and you've got recommendations. So I often say to people, it's 5:30 on a Friday afternoon, and you want to take your career to the next level, and you didn't do anything today about it, because you should do something every day, whatever that may be, to take your career to the next level. Let's start with making your boss happy and helping your manager succeed, because if you could help your manager succeed, it's going to be good for you.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's 5:30, and you got 3 kids under the age of 15, and nobody wants to cook, and it's time to go out to dinner, and you got 15 minutes. You're going to work on your resume? I say work on that LinkedIn profile. I say look at that photo. Is that something that you want? Maybe you want to invest in a headshot.
Yeah.
And what about that caption? What is the caption saying about you? Is it really drawing people to wanting to scroll down and learn more? And when was the last time you put your latest accomplishment on your LinkedIn profile, or something that you're proud about, or something about your team that you're proud about, where you can give them credit? So I love the ability to express who you are on a LinkedIn profile that a resume just can't do it.
Yeah.
So back in the day, many corporate managers, or maybe our fathers or uncles or grandfathers, would say, Jeff, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And we, oh yes, sir, I'll get it. Oh yeah. Well, in the age of social media, it's who knows you.
Yeah, interesting.
You want to make yourself approachable, and LinkedIn is a tremendous way to do that, and video, and all of the other technological advances that we have to get yourself out there. You have to be confident enough to state what it is that you bring to the table in this world in your craft, but also humble enough to be open to anybody who wants to challenge you on why you think you're the right person for this project or this job.
Yeah, interesting. So the best jobs, you said it in the last episode, it's kind of the old adage, the best jobs come to those who are already working, currently working. I believe that's the way it goes. If something, a variation of that, you probably know better. But when is the best time to conduct a career change search? While you're working?
I mean, I don't think that adage is going to get old anytime soon. The best time to look for a job is when you have one.
Yeah.
Again, are we talking about a capital J job or a little j job?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, when in the capital J job, obviously you need to be loyal to what you're hired to do. You're either all in or you're not all in. We talked about it just a minute ago. Right. If you're not happy in your job and you want to hire me, you better get happy, because you have to be in the right mindset. Right. And so what is it? What are you not happy about, and what can be changed? So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, no, I just want, a lot of people, instead of waiting till the end comes, or or sitting or being dissatisfied with, where they are, is it, when's the best time to mount a campaign?
Well, I think you need to be who you are. So social involvement's got a lot to do with it. I think nowadays you get to a certain point in your life where you may have some disposable income. Well, what are you doing with that? Is it all about a vacation and an addition to your house? Or maybe there's a cause in your local community where, you'd like to give back. There's a cost associated with that. Maybe you don't have the money right now because you're sending your child to college, but you could volunteer some of your time to that organization, right? Time, talent, and treasure. And if you're a well-rounded individual in the community, you're out there as an individual, and people see who you are. So if you're coaching a little league team, you could be the person that's keeping the score. You could be the third base coach. There's a role for everybody. And the person that likes to keep score, that wasn't me. I was the third base coach.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated my buddy who was keeping score, because we needed that organization.
Yeah.
So when you're out there and people get to see that you're putting the time in to help when it doesn't really, it's not going to come back to you in any way, shape, or form. That's an easy way to network.
Yeah.
Volunteering at the local library, or for a topic that you happen to be really knowledgeable about, that has nothing to do with your career.
Right.
But being present and being out there. And, the word networking, a lot of people misconstrue it as networking is an event. And so with the name badge, with the lanyard, and the 2 minutes and, the cocktails. And that puts a lot of pressure on people.
Yeah.
I think just finding your the things that you love in life and being there and learning how to communicate why you're doing what you're doing to begin with.
Okay.
Like I often say to companies, what do you want your employees saying at the Christmas cocktail party?
Interesting question. Wow.
That I work for Acme Corporation, and I've been there for 10 years, and I run the accounting department? Or would you like your employee to say, I work for Acme Corporation, the most exciting company east of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for them, I would not be the person that I am today. Now, I give back to the company. It is a great arrangement. And boy, the products that they sell and the philanthropy, in the St. Louis community, I'm so proud to be part of them, right? So what is it that you're now a recruiter for your own company?
Yeah.
So are you thinking that? Or are you wake up in the morning thinking, my boss is going to give me more work today? Yeah. Because your boss is a good boss, is going to give you more work today. So you kind of have to embrace that. Yeah. We knew what that was about. I mean, we knew what our job was. It was go out and make more calls and see more people. And
very interesting. So, I think what you're saying loud and clear is, hey, if you're dissatisfied, make sure you get happy with what you're doing. And that's going to allow you to be able to, I think, show that, hey, you're an accomplisher. You do things. You make things happen. Even if you're not that satisfied with all the surroundings, you're still a person that sees things through. You still put your best foot forward for your company. You still do the very best you can for that company, even though you would desire perhaps to entertain other, positions.
Sure. And I think most companies today are more willing to have conversations where you may not be totally satisfied, where I think back in the day, we never really wanted to admit if we were a little dissatisfied.
Yeah.
So I can't tell my boss because then he's going to think I'm going to leave, right? Companies are much more open today.
Yeah.
And with all the processes that are in place for appraisals and human resources development, it's okay to be a little more honest about what you want and how we can make change. And if you're a person in good standing, then if they move you to a different department or they give you some new tasks to quote unquote challenge you, the conversation is good in and of itself.
Yeah. Excellent. I watch this happening. I wonder what your take is on this. As we move further and further down digital communication lane, and we get further away from dialogue communication lane, what's happening out there? Are people losing the ability to communicate verbally, or am I not reading the tea leaves right?
I don't think so. I think there are a number of ways to communicate. Nothing, in my opinion, takes the place of human interaction. Right. Again, we're social beings. I like to see people not take the easy way out. It's sometimes work to have a conversation and to work through something.
Oh, absolutely.
It's easy to write an email about what you think. Okay, I just said it. I feel good about myself. I just said it. But did it take me anywhere? Right? Maybe at the end of the day, our throat should be a little hoarse.
Yeah.
Because we've had phone conversations or Zoom calls or whatever it may be. Discipline in communications. So for me, if I'm not with somebody, then I want to probably be on a phone with somebody or face-to-face via a Zoom or something like that. I think email is not the best way to produce results in any organization. And I think texting is a good way to make those connections and even use for appointment setting.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was where you were going with that, or
Yeah, well, I mean, I wonder, I watch people opt out of, choosing to have that conversation, and instead, maybe they're difficult conversations. They choose a texting method to do it, or they choose electronic information. Not that they hide behind the electronics, but there are daily skills of communicating face to face. And especially with the pandemic and the fact that there's so many people remote working, it's just, I think that the walls of face-to-face communication are kind of tumbling around us, and it seems to be, we're opting for so much digital communication, and I'm just wondering if that's hurting the process out there when somebody.
Well, I gave you that book, Jeff Gittimer.
Yeah.
Right, fellow podcaster. He's been around for a while, and I learned something from him a couple of months ago. So when someone calls him or he's engaging, the first thing he says is, "So, how can I help you most today?" Pretty simple.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we need more people asking other people, "How can I help you most today?"
Yeah.
Because it clears out the confusion.
Yeah.
And it almost sets the table. And it puts that person front and center. How can I help you most today?
Yeah.
Not can I help you most. What can I do for you? How can I help you most today? And now the person.
Well, you got to be in the conversation to have it. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just interesting. I'm just wondering if our dialogues, maybe I'm beating a dead horse here, but if our dialogue skills are eroding, in the face of the age that we live in to communicate.
Oh, well, I have my personal, philosophy. I think communication skills are lifelong. And
Right.
What is a communication skill? I mean, I would talk to some recruiters and they would say, "Oh, I spoke to this person is the candidate. She has good communication skills." I don't even know what that means.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Because communication, you have oral communication, written communication, listening, being able to, I took a LinkedIn learning class probably about a year ago. It was nonverbal communications. So you have two-way street with nonverbal.
Yeah.
You have, if I'm, like you just smiled, like it's like you showed an anticipatory smile, like you can't wait for me to say what I'm going to say next. Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. I can read that, okay? Yeah. So I'm decoding your body language, but I'm also encoding my body language, my own.
Yeah.
What am I saying? So if I wasn't looking at you straight in the eye, I mean, you're going to say, "Well, Rick, is he paying attention to me?" Right? So what am I taking in from you, and what am I giving off when we don't even use words?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
reading comprehension, analysis, the ability to speak one-on-one behind large microphones or at a bar, or to present to a client or 10 clients or 100 people. These are all communications opportunities. And have you ever read from a teleprompter in front of 100,000 people? And I haven't.
Yeah.
I don't think that opportunity is ever going to come up for me, but that would be another avenue in order to, right?
Right.
I'm not, you do the podcast every week. I don't do this every week. You're much more comfortable at it than I am, but you crack the ice, you get better at it.
Correct.
But podcasting, I didn't even know who knew what podcasting was 10, 15 years ago, right? It's a phenomenon.
Right.
It's cool. It's really cool. So communications, yes, there's been a little bit of a breakdown. I think people need to realize that the written word is still the written word. Yeah. And what you say, I read a book, actually I listened to the book. It was probably the first book I ever listened to on a cassette called The Four Agreements.
Yeah, not familiar with that.
Spiritualistic sort of book. Mm-hmm. And the very first agreement was be impeccable with your word. And you know what the word impeccable means? So the word peccata means sin. So impeccable means without sin.
Words without sin.
So be sinless with what comes out of your mouth. He also talked about, so simple, he also talked about never make assumptions.
Yeah. That's never buried me, Rick. You know, I don't know. Yeah.
Right?
Oh
We
my God.
never make assumptions. And he also talked about always do your best. And I'll think of the author in a minute. But the other one, which was life-changing for me in a lot of ways, Don Miguel Ruiz, I think was his name, the author. Never take anything personally.
Yeah. Tough to do.
Anyway,
yeah.
if you are impeccable with your word, you never make assumptions. If you never make assumptions, that means you'll ask a lot of questions. You'll look at every angle. You always do your best, and you never take anything personally. That's a good framework for good communications.
Yeah.
So if you're in a situation and you want to get your point across, and an email is not the right way to do it, you're going to have to say, listen, this is important. I got to pick up the phone and speak to this person.
Yeah. Yeah, very great illustration there, and you just can't downplay that. Like I noticed, Dietz and I, we go back and forth, and we do a lot electronically, but he'll invariably pick up the phone and want to have that conversation. And as a young guy, coming out of that digital landscape, I very much appreciate that because I hope you're hearing that, Dietz. But he definitely embraces that phone call, and which we grew up with that as a very important vehicle
I fall every once in a while, and I will be in a text or an email, and the person will call me, and when I answer the phone, I will say, "I love you, Paul. Thanks for saving me." Right?
Right.
Because you're a man or a woman after my own heart.
Yeah, exactly.
You saved me. I'm pretty good at not allowing this happen, but it can happen to the best of us.
Sure, absolutely.
What happened with this, Jeff? Is it okay if I call? Just call. Where did this come from?
Yeah.
Is it okay if I call? Back in the day, your phone rang. Who told you could call me? No. Yeah. Hello, Diana residence. Oh, Uncle Phil, how you doing?
Yeah, right.
All of a sudden, is it okay if I call?
Yeah.
I don't know. We're missing a boat.
Yeah.
When you call, if the person answers, I hope I got you at a good time.
Yeah.
It's Rick. Hey, Jeff, how you doing? You got 5 minutes? I wanted to pick your brain about something.
Yeah.
Not good right now. Can you call me in about an hour? Sure, no problem. Yeah. But now we got it's okay to call. And
Yeah. Oh, it's great. Well, listen, these are all good things, So, no, I love it. So what am I overlooking or not asking in reference to talent management?
Well, I think we talked about it a little bit. I think it's really important that the talent realize what they bring to the table that no one else in the world can.
Okay.
You're God's gift to the world. What makes you unique? You got the fingerprint.
Bingo.
Nobody, when you think about it, how we all look different. How did God do that?
Right. Exactly. And we all, and inside us, and character trait wise, we all bring different things to the table.
We all have our own soul,
right?
And we all bring this to the table in different ways. So I really think it's important that people, like for instance, one of the things that I do just about better than anybody, I'm a power networker. I think we talked about this last week. So if you're going to hire me to represent you, my network is your network, right? Mi casa es su casa.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm able to activate your network better than you can activate it yourself.
Interesting. Very profound concept. Yeah.
I'm a highly connected individual, and one of my top 5 strengths is connectedness.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I'm a maximizer and I'm an activator. I tend to shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah.
That's who I am.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean I always do it that way, and it doesn't mean that I do it carelessly. But it does mean that if I'm representing somebody or myself, and I've done my homework and I know who my party is, the conversation is going to be a good conversation. For you, I believe it's going to be good for you. And I'm going to be purposeful.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to create, and this is an important part of communications too, is that you want to always be respected as someone who is not going to devalue my time. We learned that day one.
Yep.
You want to be the person who's always going to be invited back.
Yep.
You want to be known as the person that is going to do light touches so that the next time you call, oh, Rick, I'm glad you called, until you're invited to do the heavy touch or whatever the case may be. So by respecting other people's time, you can build a relationship if you don't make the relationship about an event.
Yeah.
I'm meeting with Mr. Big Shot tomorrow. I hope I have all my ducks in the, well, wait a minute. You have a lot of opportunity to get prepared for that meeting or the interview or whatever it may be, you know?
Yeah, very interesting. So uniqueness and the STAR principle. Illuminate, if you could, the STAR principle again.
Well, I think we used something back in the day called the FAB, right?
Yep.
Not the favicon. That's
feature advantage benefit.
Favicon is something totally different.
Yeah.
Feature advantage benefit. It was a unit of persuasion. And for the audience, it was sort of like if you wanted to make the one big sale, you had to make all these little sales. Mm-hmm. You had to get agreement and concurrence with a product that you were selling, because you just couldn't walk in and say, would you like to buy this? Well, wait a minute, I know nothing about it. So you built up a case about all the little things that it did until the person's like, yeah, I think I'm really interested. This is a good product. I may be interested in buying it. Can you send me a proposal, et cetera? So we called it the unit of persuasion, the feature, the advantage, and the benefit. And it was our way to tell a story about the viability of the product or the solution. I think STAR is no different. STAR now allows an individual to tell who they are using the acronym STAR, which is out there, and many companies are expecting people, talent, to use that to define who they are and what they've accomplished. And the S in STAR stands for situation, the T is task, the A is action, the R is result.
Okay.
So for instance, we'll role play, and we wanted to talk a little bit about role playing. I'll take a flyer here. Situation. It's 1 month into the pandemic, and you invite me to do a podcast. And I said, well, I'm not really sure I want to do this with my webcam on my computer.
Right.
Is it really going to be, because I saw your studio, and I'm like, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
So the task was we took a year rebuilding our relationship, and it wasn't about the podcast.
Right.
It was about getting to know each other. And I got to a point where I said, you know what? I had no vacation last year. I'm probably not going to have one this year. Right? My wife is not that interested in staying at hotels and traveling on airplanes. Ricky D's got to get out and get a little air. So let me go do that podcast with Jeff.
Yeah, great.
But am I going to drive to St. Louis just to do a podcast? Yeah. So that was a catalyst. I used that as a way to get around the country. And the result is I'm on the third leg of an 8-leg trip. And this is the core of it, you know?
So cool.
So I don't know if that was like STAR, right?
Yes.
Just telling a story. Here's a situation. This is the task. This is the assignment, and, you know, self-assignment in this case. And this was the result. And here I am a year later.
So beautiful. So use this kind of formula to help use it to help pretty much highlight your uniqueness and highlight some of the things that you want to talk about.
Correct. Now that was more of a story, but if I'm selling myself a little bit, I really want to be able to say, you know, if you're getting the head nods after I tell that little story about some accomplishment that I had, so is that important to you? Or is the company looking for that sort of resilience? Or, you know, if I'm able to duplicate that sort of performance, would I earn the opportunity to work for you today? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So you want to tie it down and get some commitment.
In helping people develop, talk about the fine line, or I don't even know if it's fine, but the line between arrogance and confidence. Where do you draw that delineation? I mean, where do you stop one and start the other? Or
if someone is apologetic, I want them to be a little more arrogant. If someone is really arrogant, I want them to create more evidence, defeats disbelief. In other words, come up with, make sure that if you're confident and you know you've done a good job, person may not know who you are. I know who you are. I'm representing you to the outside world, but we gotta make that more concrete. All right. So I don't really want to change a person's persona.
Okay.
I want them to be who they are. But if you're a doormat, well, I'm not sure I would want you to hire me then. Okay, you have to be able to have some enthusiasm and be confident in your abilities, but you would want that person to, again, toot their horn every once in a while, right? It's that old expression.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think
if you don't toot your own horn, no one will.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what you're saying, evidence, to going back to that, evidence defeats disbelief, that kind of helps. If you're coming off being boastful or arrogant, it kind of helps shave that down and slot it into more of you're backing up what you're saying. So you may sound arrogant, but you're really confident and you can back it up.
Well, I think it's all based on your questions.
Yeah.
And, the consultative mind that you have when you're with a potential buyer of your talent. What questions are you asking, right? The who, what, when, where, why, how come now questions as you're working with that potential partner, that potential business partner. So if it's based on good research, background research and face-to-face research, and you're confident that you could get them from one level to another or over the hump, well, then it's time to make that declaration.
Okay. So somebody's watching this show, and a year from now, you get an email, and it says, "Hey, Rick the Quick, I need you to help me. I'm looking for a talent manager." How does the process evolve? What do you do? How does that go? How does that work?
Well, I love the question, but if you needed like heart surgery, right? I doubt very much Monica is going to, talk to the doctor about, can you tell me how you do the heart surgery, right? So there's a talent that I have, but it basically boils down to my ability to activate your network. The people that know of you and know you personally in your network that I may not even know, I'm going to reach out to those people. Because again, if we already know all the people that we need to know, then my client already knows the people he needs to know. Now I'm going to knock on the door and say, Jeff Mason, do you know what kind of podcast he's created and how he may be able to take your product from this level? You should get in touch with Jeff. Well, what do you know about Jeff? Well, I've only known him for 35 years, 40 years, and I've been following his career. He's been following mine. And we didn't even know how to spell podcast 25 years ago. But boy, this is a person that can take your product to the next level. So again, it's from your own personal experience and the trust that you have with a business partner to say, I recommend this individual. And it takes someone with a professional sales background who understands that you don't just say, Jeff's the best, but I can back up why Jeff is the best and why I'm recommending him to you and your business. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is there any process? I mean, you have to attract clients to make money and monetize things. So is there any process that you have spelled out on your website or anywhere that you counsel somebody who wants to?
The first thing we're doing is I'm going to meet with the person.
Okay.
If they're local, I'm meeting with that person.
Yeah, right.
All right. If there's any hesitation, then when they're ready, it's got to be a matter of meeting. I'm happy to have a phone consultation, but at the end of the day, it is about meeting with that person.
Okay.
Now, in preparation for that, I will have them take the Clifton 34 Strengths.
Okay.
Strengths Finder, which is the Gallup product, which is a great, synopsis of what that person brings to the table.
Okay.
It's usually a validation of who they are.
Okay.
I'll share with them mine.
Yeah.
I'll ask them a few questions. It's a quick survey. Take them about 2 hours.
Cool.
And once we have the appointment scheduled, they'll see that, they'll fill it out. There's, again, 2 hours of their time. They're going to learn a lot about themselves.
Cool.
And we'll schedule a time over a meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I'm into meals, into the breaking of the bread. It's very important.
Okay.
You know what Ronald Reagan said about that, right?
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan said, all great things in America begin at the dinner table.
Interesting.
And the dinner table's changed
I love it,
in America over the years.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is there's still so many ways to break bread and have a sandwich with somebody, or a steak dinner, or a salad.
Yeah.
Or a cup of coffee at least.
Yeah.
So one of my requirements is breaking the bread, and no one's really ever told me no.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a great way to do things. Cup of coffee, break of bread.
Then when we sit down, it's a great time to evaluate whether or not they feel arrogant enough, confident enough that they deserve a talent agent. Not everyone does.
Not everyone does. Well, it's great, and that's it's certainly something that when you mentioned to me the name of your company and we first started talking a year and a half ago, I was like, wow, haven't been looking, but I've never really understood that there's talent agents out there that really do this to this extent that you do.
I kind of wish there were more.
Yeah.
I really wish there were more. This developed with that manifesto that I wrote about 15 years ago, where I realized, actually I had this idea, because I think I told you I felt like I got the short end of a stick at an opportunity after delivering for the company. Because there was a change in the organization. The guy that hired me left, and it was like one of these things. I wasn't the guy. So I found myself writing this memo to self, and I actually thought about starting a union for sales professionals.
Wow.
But the word union and Rick Diana don't necessarily go in the same sentence together. So this is what's happened.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I decided to start a talent agency for business professionals.
Well, that's an awesome thing to do, and I know your heart. I know this guy is. I've just watched you over the last year and a half as we reconnected, and you definitely have a servant's heart. You're definitely out there wanting to help people, and I think anybody who's interested, certainly TrinitasTalent.com, and I appreciate it, Rick. So, hey, we wanted to take some time out now and just talk about a company that we started with in our business career, and we wanted to take some, certainly say hello to some folks out there as well. But we started with Lanier Business Products in 1980s and mid-80s, and we both worked in the New York City, Manhattan offices. You worked Midtown, I worked downtown near Wall Street. And our job was to sell dictation products to executives, and in exchange, get them to kind of switch what they were doing and be able to speak, 5 to 6 times faster than they could write, and hopefully arriving at a dominant motive what it would mean for them to, buy these products. And we worked for a division that was called the Thought Processing Division, which I just thought was so cool, and for that time frame. And we had a ton of fun. We got exposed to some unbelievable skill sets and training that has never left our DNA. It is in our business DNA, correct?
Correct.
And there are so many of our brothers and sisters out there who have gone through the Lanier change to Lanier worldwide, which there's tons of people out there got into the duplication and copier business as well. And but man, we were selling dictation products, and even back then, this whole concept of voice to text started cropping up back then. Like, hey, that's the future. And now what do? We sit around and take our phones and we text messages by speaking into it. We do emails by speaking into it. Just crazy. But we were on the cusp of that back then.
Yeah, we were. I do remember, though, that the PC was coming of age, too.
Yeah. And,
many businesses, lawyers, the medical profession, and regular commercial businesses, they were adopting, boilerplated material and creating databases and so forth, where what we were selling was coming under fire.
Yeah.
Because you could once you had a template, you could replicate that template.
Yeah.
And so the story of you can speak 6 to 8 times faster than you can write became a little long in the tooth.
Yeah.
But to your point, the recording, here we are all these years later, and we're still trying to perfect that. And there are multi-billion-dollar deals going down right now. Whether whatever company that you are that is promoting technology, voice is still very critical.
Yeah, absolutely, tremendously critical, and certainly in the medical field, the transition, the processes that they have there, transcribing a lot of the medical documentation. Certainly, the legal field, huge right now. But we're living it, each and every one of us, on our phones, which just blows me away that we were involved in something that has never. And look, we're recording right now. Who knows how much interfacing, all of that combined.
Even the language. I mean, when your daughters were younger, and they would say, yes, I spoke to my friend. Well, did they speak or they texted? So we started interchanging the verbs.
Yeah.
Because it's multimedia.
Yeah.
When you text now, right, you can hit that one microphone button.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Or you can hit that little other button, which is really a text voice message. I mean, whatever it takes to get the point across. And of course, it doesn't always come out the right way. And it harkens back to where I was many years ago, or like damn dictation. Still can't get it completely right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we certainly loved our time there. I know you and I both have a great affinity for the training we got, and what we really, I think, came out with of that process was the love affair, which I mentioned earlier in the podcast. The love affair with just continuing to improve, understanding that training does benefit you. There are ways to learn how to become a better professional through third-party influencers, through people who can train you. And they always told us, I remember this, they said, Jeff, to you it will always sound canned, but to the person at the other end of the who's receiving your dialogue, it will always sound
Well, you just
planned.
stole my thought, because we grew up on role-playing. And role-playing is hard, especially in front of your peers.
Yeah.
But once you build up that armor
Right.
for role-playing, you appreciate the benefits. And I believe so many people are not really, they don't know how to stand up to themselves, what it is that they do and how they do it. Within their own little world, maybe, they tell you what their job is, but knowing what your job is and knowing, again, what are those 3 things that you do better than anybody else in the world, those are 2 totally different things.
Yeah.
Once you could embrace those 3 things that you do better than just about anybody, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Because now, you're in a position to accept the next movie script, or someone who wants to come knocking that says, we want you to promote our product, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You have to kind of show yourself why that person.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, podcasters, right? You were telling me about this one podcaster who nobody knew who he was 2 years ago, and now he's got these followers, and he's doing
millions,
really well for himself.
I mean, it's and I role playing, yes, and realizing that training, that you can learn things from accepting training, being open to training was what we really came out of Linear Business Products. I think if nothing else, we understood the value of it. And when you read a book, you talk about 3 things. Our manager, Terry McManus, at least told me, Jeff, if you want to increase your skill sets, read 12 business books a year, 1 a month, and pin yourself down to taking at least 3 things away from each book, so that at the end of the year, you'll have now 36 new skill sets that you've acquired that are now part of your DNA, but you've trained yourself. You've invested in yourself to get that information out of the books.
Totally.
And it's just it's so interesting to see that that's the beauty of being open to other people's advice, to accepting pay it forward, which you and I, and the reason I'm spending time on this is that's what Rick and I do. We're here not getting filthy rich off trying to pay it forward, not saying we're braggadocious and that we have all the right answers. We're just trying to take some basic things and pay it forward to give you some skill sets or additional skills that could help you round out your skill sets.
And it may cost you some money. It's definitely going to cost you some time.
Absolutely. And role playing. One of the other podcasts, I don't know if it hasn't aired yet, but one of the things I did leading up to, I told you I spent 100 nights in hotels a year, and I drive 8 states in my territory. And one of the things I realized that I needed to do was to get familiar with interviewing. So once I knew that I was going to do a podcast eventually, I started to, in my drives to Minnesota and Wisconsin, wherever I was going, to Dakotas, wherever it was, Omaha, Kansas, I started at those late hours. I'd turn off the radio in the car and I'd start role-playing interviews in the car. So I pretended I was the guy asking questions. I pretended I was the guy receiving questions. And I did this. I've done hundreds.
You ever get pulled over?
No, not. But I've done hundreds of these. And why did I do it? Was to learn and train myself on timing, on voice inflection, on expression, on brevity, on lengthiness, on whatever I was trying to call. But by doing that, I really feel like I came to the mic when I was ready to do this, much more comfortable. And I think what you're saying is also that person, once you're going to project your uniqueness, once you're ready to project yourself, have that practiced a little bit.
Right. Well, you didn't wake up one day and say, I want to be a podcaster.
Yeah.
And here we are, almost 75 or 80 podcasts in, right?
Yeah.
You had a very good awareness of what you were good at, what you liked, and all of a sudden, it takes a lot of work and a lot of discipline. I mean, you got me ready for this. There was a lot of upfront work, we can say, over the last year after conversations, but also in just preparing for this week and last, et cetera. You've realized what it is, that what your true passions are.
Right.
And then when you realize what your true passions are, it's never really about the money.
Right.
Money's going to come. And you asked me, I think last week, about what motivates me differently. There's no question about it. I mean, money motivated me differently 20 years ago than it motivates me today. It's more about give back and the servant leadership and, helping people get through these things that you and I maybe have taken for granted.
Right.
And,
Right.
And to your point, get the training. Don't depend on anybody to get the training.
Yeah.
If there's nowhere to turn, figure it out.
Yeah.
Under fire if you have to.
Yeah. Absolutely, Rick. Well, listen, we want to take some time. I know you're going to go down and you're going to see somebody in Atlanta. I don't know if you want to say hello to him if he's going to watch, but
Mr. Cantrell, I'm on my way.
Wes, it's a pleasure, sir. Good to hopefully you connect with this podcast, and thanks for wonderful company setting that we were involved in, and certainly a lot of the guys out in New York, New Jersey.
I'd love to say the names. I don't want to leave anybody out.
I know. I just so many of them, but we got a lot of brothers and sisters who were part of the band, and I know we all have our DNA. Our business DNA is different because of that.
No question.
Yeah. So, Rick, last thing as we did last week with the Lost in the Shuffle track. What is your pick this week for Lost in the Shuffle?
Lenny Kravitz. Are you going to go my way?
Lenny Kravitz.
He's a beautiful human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's so cool, right?
Yeah.
He's got the get up, and
Oh gosh, yeah.
And he's got great music.
Yeah, he really does.
I was also watching. He's been in the Hunger Games too. I don't know if he's acted, but he's.
Yep. He was in those. Yep.
Yeah. So and he's got an interesting background growing up on the set of the Jeffersons.
Yep.
And that show, as we know, broke ground, racial ground, and it's. It made him who he is, and he's just an interesting guy, and he's a good rock and roller. And it's a song that's not at the top of the charts, right? It's one of those deep tracks.
Yeah, well, and now yes, I believe it did go number one, though.
Are you kidding?
No, I believe it did go number one. I'll double check it, but 1993, I believe it did hit. But what a tune! I remember. I think it was his third album, but I think it was the first tune where his name hit. And just the song is so cool. So we're gonna have that up as a card, where we're gonna connect you to the YouTube version of it. So you're gonna see it up in the upper right hand portion of your YouTube screen. If you're watching, if you're listening, you'd have to go to our YouTube channel and just pull it down, or just pull it down on YouTube yourself. But what a great tune. And Lenny Kravitz, and he's still going right to this day. I mean, he's still loving music, and he's gotten to be palsy-walsy with Aerosmith, and he's just still. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of the cool facts about him.
His daughter's an actress.
His daughter's an actress,
Zoe.
but he's the only performer to win a Grammy for Best Male Performer, I believe, 4 years in a row. I believe that was, yeah.
Wow.
So from like I don't know, I'm not going to say the years, but yeah. So whether it was Best Male Performer or Best Male Vocal Performance, but 4 years in a row. And so he's only got to do that. So yeah, but he did a great, one of my favorite bands, Guess Who, did a phenomenal version of American Woman.
Oh,
gosh,
yeah.
Phenomenal version.
Yeah, and Lenny claims to be a Christian man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, at any rate, Roxy Roker was his mom, and she was on the Jeffersons, and great tune. Great to have you in St. Louis. Thank you so much for making it out here. Folks, I hope, that there's a lot in these podcasts, I know, but I just hope that it's helpful for you, and you can always dip back and pull portions out. But again, Rick, Diana, Rick the Quick, TrinitasTalent.com. Find him on LinkedIn. You got Instagram too, or are you doing any of that, or what do you, Facebook?
Facebook.
But LinkedIn, LinkedIn.
The LinkedIn profile and my website are the best two places.
Bingo. Sounds great.
I think we need to give a shout out to John Blanco.
John Blanco. Okay. So give a shout out, man. Yeah.
Johnny B.
John, I worked for Mr. Arcolio, your counterpart, your competition downtown. But hey, thank you so much for everything you've done for all the guys in the band and everybody out there who's been part of the Lanier Machine. We just thank you. I really do.
Leo
and Tony Landino. I've mentioned Tony in my podcast. Prokop, Steve Arcolio, Morris Ash. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And we're still we're still in touch with a lot of guys.
Bruce Blake,
yeah. I mean, we got Jeff Keating's out there. We got a bunch of guys.
Oh my gosh!
So it just goes on and on.
Well,
and on.
I knew I'd end up forgetting somebody.
Well,
but all those guys are in my heart.
Ton of people. Yeah, the great group of guys. Kevin Rigo, Mike Brown. Thanks, guys, and for everything you've done. And we just say, hey, we'll see you next week. It'll be without Rick, but Rick, good luck on the rest of your trip.
Mark Montgomery, Paul Stinson.
They're coming out, baby.
And God rest his soul, Howard Wood.
Yeah, well, and the guy that everybody hears the stories about is Terry McManus. So we've got to say rest in peace, Terry. But Terry McManus, we've all got Terry stories. And, if you ever get us on the side or we're out for dinner sometime, we got a bevy of them. So
we didn't mention Gene Milner.
Gene Milner, yes.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
And Paul Anderson, we talked about Paul.
Yeah. Gene Miller, 6
Great
foot
guy.
6 foot, 7, 4?
He was a big man.
But yes, we got Keegan Sparks out there. We got Steve Gilda. Steve, hey man, was one of my guests on a show, and he connected us. So yeah, just a ton of people out there. So well, Rick, thanks so much for showing up and making the trip out here, and for all your contributions. And safe travels. We will see you next week. Don't forget, always respond to all inquiries. Follow up at the rubber meets the road. Where? Follow through, man. Don't forget to follow through. We'll see you next week, folks. Take care.